Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Adventure Island, brought to us by Hudsons. Adventure Island started off as a direct port of the arcade game Wonder Boy, before eventually Hudsons changed the main character into the Master Higgins character that we have come to know. However, with the exception of the very first game, none of the other Adventure Island games are based on any game from the Wonder Boy series, and in fact, the Wonder Boy series kinda went off on a completely different path as well. Adventure Island features 8 different worlds broken up into 4 levels each, very similar to the original Mario Brothers, and at the end of the 4th level of each world you must face off with the evil Witch Doctor boss. The game is very arcade, frantic, and action-packed. When we start up the game, you'll notice a few things, not only of course our main character as he starts to speed along, but you'll be able to find different power-ups as well as some negative power-ups in eggs that you find. You'll notice at the top of the screen there's a health bar that has 11 default spots that you'll have health in, and it'll slowly decrease even if you're not being attacked by enemies. The game features one-hit death though from enemies, but you can also die if you run out of health from not eating enough food. There are lots of different food items to randomly find throughout the game, either appearing just by walking by, or sometimes you'll have to jump at specific spots in order to get food to show up. Sometimes, however, food may actually appear in the eggs in the form of milk, which will completely replenish your health. At any point, you can have a maximum of 13 health. Inside the eggs, though, are also our weapons, including the axe, and we can actually upgrade that into the fire throw. Other power-ups in the game include the skateboard, which as you can see, really speeds up Master Higgins. The only problem is you can't actually come to a complete stop. So while this is useful in early levels to speed through, the later levels it becomes almost a handicap, causing you usually to end up falling down a pit by mistiming jumps. You can also find inside the eggs the fairy-like creature known as Honey Girl. Honey Girl will stay with Master Higgins for a short period of time, but most importantly will make him invincible, allowing him to run through enemies. Above that, of course, is the score, which being an arcade-based game, score is very important, and on the upper left corner is our current life count, which you actually do earn more lives by getting a certain amount of points, such as 50,000, 100,000, or 200,000 points. Since the game is really difficult at times, there are 4 different checkpoints in each of the levels, so once you reach one of those numbered signs that you pass in a level, you'll restart at that point in case you end up losing a life. If you love platforming like I do, this game will definitely provide a huge challenge for you, as there are tons of really tricky jumps, especially the farther we get into the game, as well as a lot of different enemies to try to dodge in and out of. Learning how the enemies work sometimes will definitely help you out, as some enemies will actually just jump over you and you can just run under, or some of them you'll have to jump over yourself. Quick thinking of knowing what enemy is coming up and what exactly you should do to try to avoid them is going to be essential to getting through the levels. With the eggs, you not only can run into them in order to get them to open up, but you can actually also just straight up attack them using the axe weapon or the fire weapon if you do have it. There are actual instances where hatching the egg one way and hatching it a different way will actually grant you different items. Sometimes you'll notice that I'll intentionally dodge an egg, like I did just there. These eggs actually end up usually containing the eggplant. The eggplant is the worst thing you can find inside of an egg, because it does the opposite of what the Honey Girl does. He's going to end up decreasing your health in a pretty rapid fashion, so you're going to want to try to either collect as much fruit if you accidentally get one of those guys as you can, and if you don't have full health already, you're probably going to end up losing a life. The eggplant is one of the worst things to deal with when it comes to Adventure Island, you know, besides all the other animals and pits that you're trying to avoid. At the end of the levels, you'll get your score racked up, and then below that, you'll see the pot bonus. There are pots that you find throughout the game, and grabbing them will just net you extra points, which can help you work towards one of the life score goals, so you can get an extra life or 2. Another big part of Adventure Island, besides, of course, trying to keep that food up, which usually ends up becoming a second thought, my main goal when working through the levels is kind of figuring out the enemy patterns. There are a variety of different enemies, and they all, of course, are going to act a little bit differently, such as the fox-type enemy that comes up from behind you. One of the more annoying ones are the frogs. There are 2 different types of frogs, green and red. And the red frogs, you can actually just run underneath, or drive underneath if you're on the skateboard. Whereas the green frogs, you're gonna have to jump over. They won't actually move at all. You also have the spiders that come in packs of 3 or 5, and trying to dodge in between these guys, because they're going to be at different spaces on the screen, moving up and down, sometimes at varying speeds as well, it can be really difficult to get through them, so usually you want to take your time and try to fire at them, take out one at a time and then try to go through instead of just trying to rush through them. Here we have the first of the witch doctors. They move really slowly, so go to the left side of the screen. He'll fire fireballs at you, usually arcing over you, so stay low to the ground and try to avoid that fireball. The first guy only takes a handful of hits, but every single witch doctor afterwards will actually increase his health by 2, so you have to hit him with 2 more weapons. After defeating one of the witch doctors, we take the elevator up and run off screen, completing the first world and move on to the second world of the game. Other types of enemies, including the octopus enemies. As you can see, they're blue and red ones, with the red ones dying instantly from a hit, whereas the blue ones take 2 hits to take out. And in fact, actually, when you hit one of the blue ones, he'll turn red and then finally be defeated. The other big key element to Adventure Island is, of course, the platforming itself. Now, while the platforms may look different depending upon which level you're currently in, they pretty much act the same. You'll have the ones that either rise or fall just a short distance, ones that stand still, ones that of course move left and right, the ones that just kind of keep cycling through like elevators. And you'll of course notice many similarities to Mario throughout the platforming itself. You also have to deal with the ones that when you step on them, as soon as you do, they end up falling. And sometimes there's almost no distinction on which ones are going to collapse beneath you and which ones are going to stay. So one thing I always like to do is don't plan on being on a platform for very long. As soon as you get on that platform, already start moving towards the next one. And this is where things, of course, get difficult because there may be an enemy coming your way. Consistently firing out your projectile weapon, hopefully you have it. If you end up losing a life, thankfully they usually give you another power-up for the weapon right near where you end up respawning. So you'll notice most of the game, except on a few spots where I know I'm safe, for example, before a line of bats or on a solid ground, I will always keep moving. At least the best that I possibly can. That way, I always have that potential of being able to at least attempt to jump off of an upcoming platform quickly before it ends up falling down into the pit below. The snake enemies are another annoying enemy as they do spit fireballs out at you, and they kind of spit them out randomly. You could be on the far left side of them and they'll spit one out, or you can get up close to them, they haven't spit one, and then as soon as you're about to get close, boom, they finally spit that fireball out at you. So jumping up into the air or trying to launch with momentum the different axe weapons or fire weapons at them is going to help you out. One thing that I hadn't brought up yet is the lives and the game over situation. When you end up losing all your lives, it's game over, you go back to the title screen and start back at level 1. However, there is a hidden item you can find. Supposedly not available in all versions of the game, but there is a hidden honeybee item that you can find actually back in level 1. Right by the goal sign of the first level of the game, you can actually jump up near a cliff and find the hidden honeybee egg. If you grab this, then when you go back to the title screen after game overing, you can hold up A and then press start, and you will continue back from where you left off with a few lives. Not recommended that you use the skateboard at all during levels like this, and pretty much any level at this point on. Using it will just kind of be a handicap to you, and you can show off a little bit of the skills you've learned, seeing how far you can actually make it in some of these levels using the skateboard item. When you come to a row of pig enemies, stay on the ground, keep moving, and just keep mashing the attack button as quickly as you can, and you should be able to take out all rows of pigs that come dancing towards you. They love to put fire as well as snails right on the edges of platforms when you're going to be coming down sometimes. So you want to of course try to either land right before or right after these snails. Be careful of the green frogs. Like I said, they won't actually jump at you, but they take 2 hits in order to destroy them, just like the octopus or squid-like enemies. Here we reach the end of World 2/3 and move on to the final level of World 2. At the beginning of the next level, you're going to jump over the fire, then stay on the ground and move a little bit at a time, taking out the spiders as well as the pig that comes flying towards you. Now, in the game, the fires will end up killing you if you end up running into them as just Master Higgins without the skateboard. However, the rocks will get rid of your skateboard and you'll trip as Higgins, but it'll end up just taking away a little bit of your health. It won't actually kill you to walk into the rocks. And there's going to be some times where you actually end up hitting a rock and bounce on multiple rocks in a row before finally landing safely. This, of course, can be really difficult when usually they'll end up putting some kind of obstacle right after a series of rocks, like a flaming torch or maybe a stationary snake enemy. They love to put large groups of spiders together, so try to get through them as you can, and anytime you see one of those foxes coming up behind you, you may want to stop for a second, jump over him to avoid him, and then continue on. When we reach here, we'll jump on those platforms as it's time for the next boss fight. Jump up in the air and keep delivering those hits to him. He's a little bit faster this time, takes a little bit more hits. When you see him summoning the fireball, just stay close to him so he'll arc right over you, and you'll easily defeat the boss. Other than probably the absolute final boss of the game, most of these wizard bosses aren't really too difficult. World number 3 starts us off inside of one of the castle-like segments. I'm not sure exactly how you describe the area that we're in, but this area usually contains a ton of hard-to-move platforms. Early on, I end up grabbing the skateboard item, of course not recommended, as I work my way through. Sometimes the eggs can be difficult to grab because you'll be trying to get them, but they'll just bounce right off of an edge. Usually at that point, just keep on moving. You don't really have to worry too much about the eggs, as long as you're able to keep your health on. Now, if at some point in the game, and there is a couple of spots where there can be some long distances without normal health items, you'll usually have to kind of jump around and try to find some hidden health items or possible eggs. Things can get really hectic at that point, but you want to definitely keep pressing forward, more so than just trying to jump on every spot on the map until eventually maybe something ends up spawning. Thankfully, the game is pretty lenient with its checkpoints. The only problem is, of course, you don't have that many lives, and if you didn't get the honeybee early on in the game, those lives are very crucial, so you're always going to kind of be in a little bit of a panic while running through. As soon as the next level begins, we're going to be grabbing a skateboard to go up the hill. Be careful of the murder of crows that immediately appears as you can hit the bottom one with an axe. Most of this level is made up of hills as well as jumping over boulders, so it makes for a decent level to actually have the skateboard on. You'll be able to quickly get up and down the hills and the slopes, and it's not a ton of dodging you're going to have to do over the rocks and fire pits. Right there where I get hit is probably the trickiest spot, as you have a snake fire as well as a rock coming down all at the same time, and it can be almost impossible in order to avoid actually not losing the skateboard. Right after that, though, we will be chased by a frog, who unfortunately can't be attacked on the skateboard because we can't turn around and actually attack backwards, so he ends up eventually running into me. Right here, though, thankfully, is also a honeybee fairy, who I can then use to run through a series of rocks and everything else coming my way. Thankfully, she freezes my health a bit, and I'm able to just get barely enough health to finish up the level. The next level is another one of the ocean levels, and starts off with a series of platforms along with octopus enemies bouncing out of the water. Just a little bit ahead of that, you'll have some moving up and down platforms, including one that will end up falling, so once again, you're going to be very fast to get off of that platform as quick as you can. The octopus enemies, because of their timing, are pretty easy to jump around. As you can see, I can land on a platform and jump over one without having to wait too long for them to go back down to the water and pop back up. Here, I get another one of the honeybee fairies so that I can freeze my health as well as get a bunch more health along the way. Right over here, I'm actually going to get up to this platform and wait a few seconds. Wait for the fish to kind of get onto the screen and take him out from a distance before trying to jump at him. He's one of the more annoying ones to actually hit, and I recommend taking out the next one as well on the elevators before moving on. The fourth area of level number 3 is another forest area. Here it starts off with a bunch of spiders, so take your time while walking through them. Keep firing out your axes. Right after that, though, you're going to have stacked up spiders, so 2 at a time, which are impossible to jump over, so you're going to have to take them out. Thankfully, a bottle of milk is located in this egg right here that we're able to replenish all of our health, because it may take a few seconds in order to get through that whole spider area, followed by that giant flock of birds. Use the spring or just jump over the set of rocks in order to land over here, and continue moving on. Thankfully, most of this level is made up of just solid platform, with a lot of enemies for you to battle along the way. After the area opens up and the forest disappears, you'll have a bunch of series of rocks with some boulders coming at you, as well as some foxes up from behind like normal. It's not too much farther after this, though, that your score and lives will disappear, and it'll be ready for the next boss fight. Just like always, we're going to be jumping up in the air and firing out those axes, making sure to stay on the ground when he ends up doing his arcing fireballs, which will now increase in speed. As you notice, he actually got 2 fireballs off during the course of that fight. But once he's done, we move on to World 4. World number 4 begins, and run over to the right, take out a couple of the snake enemies as well as the bird before grabbing another honeybee and then running like the wind in order to run through a series of birds, snails, and anything else in our way. Down here, you can hit this egg and free yourself another skateboard if you would like to try to use it, though trying to dodge in and out of these birds can be really bad. If you duck down on the skateboard while still moving, you'll be able to have sometimes a better chance of dodging the birds above you, as well as potentially hitting the birds coming straight at you. But this doesn't always work, of course. Thankfully, this is another pretty solid level, with the ground making up most of it, and only a tiny bit of platforming near the end of the stage. Take out this snail before attempting to jump over the rocks, because more than likely you're not going to jump all the rocks with one jump, and you're going to have to end up getting hit by that final rock, and normally it would best bounce you into the snail. You have a couple little moving up and down platforms, but nothing too bad before reaching the end of the stage. The next level is actually a new style of level. We'll actually have 2 different new styles of level back to back. This one, I guess, is a mountain-themed stage. Overall, though, it's pretty hard because of the amount of items you end up getting. There's a large chunk of this level that has pretty much no fruit in it, though I will show the location of one particular set of milk that will really help out. There's a lot of boulders that are coming down, and it's a lot of stair-like platforms that you're traveling through. You'll notice that right now there's a large period of time where I haven't seen any fruit in order to actually grab it and in order to increase my health back. Thankfully here, though, break open this egg. Do not hit it and knock it away. You want to break open that egg, because inside of it, while breaking it open, will be milk. And you can grab that milk and get all your health back, which should be enough in order for you to finish up the level. The next level of the game is an ice-themed level. You're going to have icicles on the ceiling that will come crashing down on you, so you're going to want to speed through and run underneath of them quickly so they don't end up landing, of course, directly on top of you. There's some fire along the way. Eventually you'll have to deal with some pits, and because it is ice, you will be slipping and sliding a little bit on the ground. The controls are always slippy in Adventure Island, but even more so, I guess, during the ice levels. Right here can be some pretty hard jumping as you'll move to that moving back and forth platform before making it to the other side, and then a large series of very small platforms and jumps to make. Slow down here, either take out the skulls or do a big jump over the two that are together before going through another series of jumps and spiders. Now here is some really hard jumping because of the momentum, and it's hard to describe how the momentum works, as when you're trying to jump through, sometimes it will slow you up a lot when you end up landing on a platform, so you won't have enough momentum in order to continue moving on. Momentum is similar to other earlier NES games like Mario, but for some reason Adventure Island always felt a little bit different. Either way, we're on to the fourth level of World Number 4, and this one is another forest-themed stage. Starts off with more of those spiders and more flocks of birds. Nothing that we haven't already come to terms with as far as being able to dodge around them, as well as, of course, the fox enemies that will come speeding up behind you as quick as they possibly can. Use these springs in order to bounce you up. I would just ignore the vase unless you're really desperate for points, and right after that you'll find another one of the honey girls. Thankfully you can use this ferry to run through a series of pigs as well as a series of frogs near the end, but be very careful though not to run through all the frogs, because that's usually where she ends up disappearing and you may end up getting hit or killed by the frog. At the end, jumping through inside of another one of those castle-like segments, and it's time for another witch doctor. Stay on the far left side and keep firing at him, or stand right next to him and keep jumping. He moves really quickly this time, so more of a suggestion to stay far away from him and then just jump over the arcing fireballs that he's able to get up. Once he's been defeated though, we have completed half of the game and we're moving on to level 5-1. Level number 5 starts us off in another one of the ocean-themed levels, with some snails on the normal ground before branching off into the open waters, and some more octopus enemies. From here on out, we're going to be seeing very many similarities between the upcoming levels and parts of levels we've already done in the past, with nothing really too new being thrown at us from here on out, just trickier and trickier segments to get through. The Adventure Island series, of course, started off, like I mentioned, as a port of the Wonder Boy series. However, Adventure Island became its own franchise for Hudsons Soft, including not just this game, but also included 3 other Adventure Island games that were released in North America, with a 4th Adventure Island game released only in Japan, and a spin-off game that was released only in Japan as well for the Famicom. There's also the Game Boy versions of Adventure Island, which were basically ports of Adventure Island 2 and 3, but for Game Boy, as well as the Super Adventure Island series that was released for the Super NES. There was actually also an anime spin-off as we reached the end of level number 1 of World number 5. Yep, they actually made a full anime spin-off, which was called Honeybee in Toycom Land, which was actually based around, well, the Honeybee girl that we have been gathering throughout the game, who gives us that invincibility for short periods of time. The anime actually ended up lasting 51 episodes, including a theatrical film, and that was the basis for its own game on its own, which is another game for the Adventure Island series I don't hear mentioned too often, and personally, as the making of this video, I have not played yet. In Japan, Master Higgins isn't known as Master Higgins. He's actually known as Takahashi Meijin, who is named after the executive of Hudsons Soft from back in the day. Unfortunately, there's only been a handful of Adventure Island games made since the Super NES days. with the Adventure Island the beginning being made for the Nintendo Wii Virtual Console, as well as a couple of mobile releases. And since Hudson Soft unfortunately did close and all their properties were bought up by Konami, we haven't seen any mention of Adventure Island since. World number 5, level 2 in there, is one of the trickiest platform levels we have dealt with so far. There's a lot of moving back and forth platforms, so it can be really hard to dodge the enemies on and jump to them safely. Landing on them only for a few moments to usually avoid a bad enemy coming at us, and then using the momentum of the moving platform to send us launching towards another platform. Level 5-3 is another one of the, ice-themed castle stages. It starts off and will give you a skateboard right at the beginning. But I'm going to tell you right now, you want to avoid the skateboard and just start moving towards the level like normal. There is a ton of enemies to deal with at the very beginning of the level, from the bats and frogs to everything else kind of ganging up on you. Land on this platform as it's moving, and don't try to jump to the next platform immediately. Wait for another one to come down in the elevator-style platform from above before continuing on. Run straight into this wall, be careful to avoid the giant boulder before going up the elevator and then using the springs to make it over the next gap. Yeah, there's a lot going on here, I know. Like I said, the platforming gets extremely tricky as we make it farther and farther into this game, and World 5 was usually about where I would end up running out of lives as a kid. Barely able to make some of these jumps, but thankfully they're a little bit lenient when it comes to landing on some of the platforms. Here I can do some running jumps over boulders, though of course it is recommended for you to jump over them when they land safely. And then the end spot right here, where you're going to be running constantly and jumping. If your timing is off just a hair on those platforms at the end of that level, you will end up losing a life. It is one of the hardest platforming segments this game has to offer, and one of the hardest platform segments, honestly, on the NES. Thankfully, World 5-4 is a little bit easier to contend with when we start it up, as you're going to have spiders moving up and down to start it off. There's a lot of them, but thankfully you can take your time here and move in between the spiders and keep launching out your projectile weapon in order to hit them. Right at the number 2 sign is a milk bottle you can pick up to replenish your health if you have to take a little bit more time than usual to get around the spider enemies. You're going to then run under a series of frogs and use the springs in order to bounce over the flames. Now, when you have a frog chasing you from behind, just keep moving here, as we'll be able to outrun him, thankfully, before we end up running into another set of enemies. Keep moving, jump over this boulder, then immediately run under the frog and jump over another boulder. Kind of an up, down type situation. And then you'll make it to the end of the stage where it's time to battle the next witch doctor. When the boss fight begins, we're going to stay about halfway away or go towards the back of the screen and, just like always, either jump over the flames if you're far away or stand right next to him and let him go over your head if he's a little bit closer. He takes a lot more hits now since he is a much stronger witch doctor, but either way it's pretty much the same ordeal. Once he's defeated, we'll move on to world number 6. World number 6 starts off with a pretty tough jump and another ocean-themed stage. There's a lot of squids now coming out of the water, and there's so many at times the screen will actually flicker a lot with how many graphics are currently going on at the same time. Stay on the platforms just long enough so you can make it safely to the next one, with some of them, of course, immediately falling down towards the ocean below. With the amount of squid enemies, you can either jump over them or run underneath of them. You can take your time a little bit and take out each individual one if you really do want to, just to be safe, but you can usually get a pretty good strategy of avoiding and going up and down and in between all the squids when you're running on these platforms. You saw I was able to get a skateboard for only a handful of seconds. With so many enemies, it's going to be impossible to keep it. And like I said, really just not worth dealing with. There's a couple of large fish on these elevator moving up and down segments, and with so many enemies, the screen will be flickering, so try to keep your eyes on Higgins, just so you know where he is, even with everything kind of like slowing up and freezing and flickering everywhere. World 6 Part 2 is another one of the cave-themed levels. We're going to pick up the skateboard right at the beginning. It's a little bit of a flat area, but with so many enemies coming towards us, it's not going to last too long. There's lots of bats storing in this section, so move a little bit, then fire your tomahawk at a couple of the bats. Right after the number 2 mark, though, is another skateboard, so you can grab that for a short period of time. The only real reason to grab it, especially on flat surfaces, is it does give you an extra hit to your health, because normally if you get hit without the skateboard, you're instantly dead, but with tight areas with a lot of enemies around, you can hope for the best and get that extra hit to yourself. This segment, just run as fast as you possibly can past all of the different falling icicles from the ceiling, and you may be chased by a frog during the course of this as well. Up here, wait for the boulder to go by before jumping to the platform and opening up this egg, or jumping all the way across the giant gap to another solid platform with a whole herd of bats slowly flying towards you. The next level is another one of the mountain-themed stages, and we know what to expect this time. There's not as much health as there is in some of the other levels. Some birds are going to be flocking in from the right side, and they move in a little bit of a wave pattern, so stay low to the ground, or try to catch them as they're coming towards you before the first one ends up going overhead. You're going to have a few frogs following that as you're working your way up the mountain, with more boulders coming down at you. Right here, you want to make sure to take your time and stand in between the fireballs, and then jump over the large gap to the other side. Here, we're going to grab a hold of the honey fairy girl, and even though we're low on health, we get just enough fruit to sustain us while also running through with the honey girl in order to survive the rest of the level. The very end segment, after the number 4, you will have to bounce on some trampolines over fire. They do give you fruit along the way to help you out. Here, I'm going to bust open this particular egg using my tomahawk axes, because it will end up granting me a milk bottle, which will, of course, replenish all of my health, and then reach the goal. The fourth level of world number 6 is another forest-themed level, and there's a ton of spiders. You're going to have to take your time, stop, take out at least both of the spiders moving up and down over certain areas, and then jump in between rocks and fire. You want to avoid the rocks, of course, not landing on top of them directly so you don't bounce right into a set of spiders. By the number 2, if you hit this egg, you will get some milk to replenish all your health, especially if you took your time during that previous segment with all the spiders. Remember, with the frogs, we're going to run underneath the red ones, and there's a large series, so be sure to jump over the green one, which is located at the end. Pretty hard jump there, where we have to use a trampoline over a set of fire and rocks, and then after the number 3 sign, we have a whole bunch more spiders to deal with. Right here, you want to walk a few in, then stand in between a couple spiders and take out the rest of them, because it'll be hard to hit all the ones that are coming down. After the number 4 sign, you will get to a spot with 4 rocks that you're going to have to end up hitting at least one of the rocks, but thankfully that's near the very end, and you'll be able to land in the area with the Witch Doctor and get ready for the next boss fight. He moves really fast and fires fireballs at it a lot quicker, so just like always though, try to stand underneath the arc or jump over him if he's really far away from you. Either way, once his head has been knocked off, you'll be able to move on to the 7th world of the game. World number 7 starts with another one of the ice cave levels, more ice spikes coming down, some pigs charging towards us at the beginning, and a series of skulls that are doing those rotating flames around them. After avoiding all them and taking them out along the way, wait for this boulder to kind of start bouncing back and forth before attempting to jump over it and get safely to the other side where the number 2 awaits. Jump between the flames carefully. It can be hard with that momentum. Once again, it's one of those things where you're going to have to try it out to get used to it. Unfortunately, though, this is one of those times where I do end up losing a life, and we'll be able to pick up right back where we left off at the number 2 spot. Like I said, this game is extremely difficult, and it's one of those ones, unfortunately, I've never been able to beat without dying at least once. Wait for my right momentum so I can get over and continue on in the stage. Jump up here, avoiding a series of rocks, and then comes the tricky platforming. Using the momentum to our advantage and taking out a spider from a distance, we land finally safely back on solid ground. Once here, we're going to jump over some spiders and use this spring after timing it correctly so that we can bounce over and land safely on the opposite side. Unfortunately, though, I unleash one of those killer eggplants, and he loves to eat up as much of my health as he possibly can before finally flying away. The end of the level has a couple of more moving platforms, which can be hard to jump between, but then we'll land safely on the other side and get ready for the second part of World 7. There's a whole bunch of octopus and snails at the very beginning, but thankfully it's solid ground so we don't have to do too much platforming. Then we'll jump and take flight into the ocean, jumping on a bunch of clouds. Jump over this frog, who will then proceed, of course, to chase us, but we're going to outrun him to the edge and then jump onto some platforms. There's going to be immediate ones falling, so you're going to be really quick on those next couple of cloud platforms. Jump in between a whole bunch of pigs, and you're going to be stopped at the end of this platform with 3 frogs together, and it can be quite nasty to try to deal with them. As you've noticed now, they're really loving to bunch up enemies all together, so it becomes really rough to try to avoid them. After a large series of cloud platforms, land on this elevator one that you'll have to jump up and reach over to the far right, where we complete the second area of World number 7. The next level is a cave level, and it looks a little bit different with a different color scheme with just pretty much a solid white, but it's still a typical cave stage. There's a large amount of birds coming here, so wait on this platform, take out the birds, and then attempt to jump over the flame and onto the solid ground. You have to make a large jump here, but thankfully the platform won't go all the way down. It'll only rise and fall a little bit, and then we'll be able to jump up. Watch out for this cobra spitting the fireballs at us. Eventually we're able to get just the right opening to jump over them and continue on. Drop down here, use your axe to take out the skulls right here, and you can try to take out the snail from a far distance before jumping over there if you want to, or you can land right next to it. On another series of moving platforms, drop down slowly and get to the other side. It pretty much should be known at this point, there's going to be a lot of hard platforming. Wait on a platform as long as it's a safe platform that's not going to drop down into a pit, and make sure there's no enemies coming directly at you so you can take them out before attempting to make those jumps. Just, of course, before you make the jumps, know where the other platform goes to, how far it goes left or right, and that you have enough momentum before even trying to attempt it. World 7-4, no surprise, forest-themed level, and the spider count has gotten even bigger than the last time we dealt with a forest level. pretty much we're just waiting for the right opportunities to take out the spiders and then move on. You don't want to rush it, of course. We've made it this far into the game, we definitely don't want to rush too much during the spider segments. Here, be sure to take out the spider and then make a long running jump so you can make it over the fire in the middle and the two rocks. Then you're going to run under a large series of frogs before jumping over the final green frog. After some trampolines, you'll land safely next to the number 3 sign, and then a large series of spiders again, which will usually end up causing the game to slow down, especially if you're mashing the attack button, like I like to do. Here you'll run under a bunch more of the spiders before trying to take out the last couple of ones, and then be immediately bombarded by not only pigs, but foxes coming up from behind. Make a long jump over these flames, and then you'll have to hit a couple of these rocks. Now, one thing good, if you get hit by a rock and you're in your falling tripping animation, the flame from the cobra won't hurt you. At the end of the area, once again, is the witch doctor, who you're going to either jump over his flame or get close enough so he arches over you, and then keep jumping up into the air and hitting him with your axes. He takes a lot more hits than he ever has before, and finally he's defeated, and we move on to the 8th and final world of Adventure Island. As to be expected, the 8th world doesn't pull any punches and is harder than all the previous levels. The 8th world starts off with one of the mountain-themed stages, and this one is pretty tricky with not only the amount of enemies swooping down at you, frogs jumping over you, and rocks coming down at you, but also, just like the other ones, it can go a long time between actually finding food. Take out these cobras before jumping up, and I finally actually end up obtaining the torch item. The whole game I haven't had the torch. Now, the torch does a little things differently than just the axe, as it can actually take out some objects, including the giant rocks, that end up kind of rolling down towards you. It also throws differently, and because it throws straight out, sometimes I don't actually like it as much as just using the regular axe, because a little bit of arc that the axe has can help me hit some enemies a little bit differently. Despite my personal preferences, it is the best weapon in the game, and if you can get it earlier on by finding it in the eggs, then definitely go ahead and use it. But personally, I prefer to usually use the main tomahawk, plus you're going to have the tomahawk mostly anyway. Being able to get to the flame torch sometimes isn't going to happen, and with how quickly you can die in the game, you may end up losing it pretty fast. Use these springs to bounce over these spiders that are moving up and down. Unfortunately, I end up unleashing one of those eggplants, and I have to deal with that near the end of the level. But because of the amount of health and all I built up prior, it doesn't hurt me too bad. The beginning of the second area, World 8, is another one of those big leaps as another island-themed stage with a whole ton of ocean and a ton of octopus enemies. With us throwing our weapon and the amount on screen, it will slow down a little bit, so you have to be cautious of that. The jumping fish can be really annoying on some of these little moving platforms, as they don't get quite high sometimes enough for you to be able to actually hit them with your flame. Usually while jumping through a large portion of this area, I usually like to just keep jumping and keep mashing that attack button to keep projectiles out to help me out. Here I find another one of those honey girls, which will definitely help me out, as there's a large series of pigs and other enemies, so I can just run all the way through them. Here I'm going to jump on a couple of moving platforms on the clouds, doing my best to avoid the jumping fish. They're worse than the octopuses to deal with. Their hitbox is a little bit lenient though. If you're near the very front nose area of the fish, you may be able to just barely skate by without getting clipped by them. The next level is one of those castle-themed stages. Either way, you start off with a series of rocks, but then a boulder will start coming towards you. With the flame, of course, we can take that out. Afterwards, though, when you get between these rocks, stay there, take out the cobra as well as the bats before jumping over to the right. The level doesn't start off too tricky, but trust me, it'll get tougher as we go. Wait for the elevators to kind of go down, and when it comes back up through the top, then you'll use it in order to jump over. Here, you're going to jump to the platform if you can. If you end up falling down below, you're going to have to avoid that boulder or try to take the boulder out. Be sure to open up this egg in order to replenish all of your current health, and then move to the moving platforms. Just like always, these are tough to deal with, and you will have to carefully jump in between them, taking out the bats or jumping over the bats altogether. A few times I definitely recommend taking out the bat before even attempting the jumps, because those bats will always seem to get in the way. After that, though, you will reach the number 4, and we're nearing the end of the level. Stand on the edge, waiting for the boulder to go over you, or if you can time a nice running jump, you can actually get over the flame and the boulder. At the end, though, you'll have a whole bunch of those automatically falling platforms. The jumping on it, I can't even describe how hard it can be to time that just right. Even a very good amount of practice and playing this game a lot, I had to play this level in particular a ton before I was able to ever fully get through it. If you're able to somehow survive that, though, you'll make it to World 8/4, the final stage of the game. Just like usual, it's a forest-themed level, and a ton of spiders await us at the beginning. In my opinion, this level isn't as tough as the previous level, so if you're able to get past the castle level, you should be able to get through here. Open up this egg near the number 2 sign in order to get milk to replenish the health. The hardest part can be jumping over the flames and rocks, landing in between the flame and rock so you don't end up bouncing on it and be able to escape. Then you're going to run under another series of frogs. Sometimes, though, I end up jumping over this spider and get bounced a little bit between the rocks. After number 3 and being chased by another frog, we'll come to more spiders. Take them out, and once again you'll have this whole series where they kind of come down in a different diagonal pattern, but either way we'll be able to get past them, and then you'll have that series of hills that we like to have at the end. The trickiest spot of this level, though, is jumping in between these two flames and then being able to get over them. But right afterwards is the final boss of the game. He's the same as always. He moves quicker, though, he takes a few more hits, but it's the same exact ordeal. Being sure to be close to him or far enough away that you can jump over his flames, and once he finally goes down, you can sit back and enjoy the very, very brief ending to Adventure Island on the NES. So there you have the ending to Adventure Island on the NES. Yeah, the ending's kind of lackluster, but not really surprising for an earlier NES title. However, the skill level and practice that it would take to get to this point is its own reward, and you should definitely feel accomplished if you're one of the people who were actually able to complete Adventure Island. But with that, that's going to wrap up this edition of Play It Through. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.